Welcome to the Diverse Series podcast. Thank you all for joining me and our special guest, Asante Hill. He's the president and CEO of Black Men and Women of Valor in Atlanta, Georgia. We're going to be talking about mentoring and empowering Black youth. But please, everyone, welcome Asante Hill. And here's a word from Asante.
Greetings. Hello. Thank you all very much for being here today. My name is Asante Hill, President and Chief Executive of Black Men and Women of Valor. We are extremely excited to be here today to give you guys some insights into our program, our impact, and the incredible work that we are doing in the city of Atlanta. Once again, thank you all so very much for being here today. Tune in.
Hi, happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the Diverse Series podcast. Thank you all for joining me and our special guest, Asante Hill. At the Diverse Network, we desire to empower people to grow and create positive change for their community. Through podcasts and networking events, we help people discover minority businesses while helping entrepreneurs discover valuable resources and build relationships, authentic relationships with their community, because we believe that diversity unlocks innovation. So join the network today. Also, if you've been liking this podcast series, feel free to hit that subscribe and like button. Lastly, if you think of a question to ask Asante later, drop it in the comments or chat with your email attached so he can personally reach out to you and respond and answer your question. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Asante, for taking the time. And man, it's going to be such a special time. It really is. So I can't wait. I'm super excited. Thank you for joining us today. And really, to kind of kick us off, man, what has your journey been like to go from a small town in Ohio to being the president and CEO of Black Men and Women of Valor in Atlanta?
Man, awesome. Thank you so very much for allowing me to be here today, Jordan. Before I deep dive into anything else, I want to give an opportunity to recognize you and acknowledge your efforts and acknowledge the efforts of this podcast. What you are doing is well needed. It is a critical pillar in the momentum that we need to drive minorities, to drive the power and the entrepreneurship of the people that are really putting the work in, man, and shining the light on that. So kudos to you, kudos to your team, man, and all the work that you are doing. Coming from a small town to a city like Atlanta, Georgia, truly has been incredible. While there have been some ups and downs and some mountains and also some valleys, you begin to embrace the adversity and use that to build character. And so I would have to say that it's the best decision that I've ever made, that I would have ever made, both personally and professionally. The amount of opportunities, the amount of support, the amount of just the pace of things, the way that people are really looking to get things done down here in the city of Atlanta is just absolutely incredible. It's inspiring. Truly, I never thought that I would be an entrepreneur until I moved to the city of Atlanta. I don't come from a long line of entrepreneurs or inheritance and things of that nature. So you begin to believe, the narrative of going to school and getting out of school and kind of writing your life out and taking the road most traveled. And so I began to try to seek some other things that, my gift and what God really gave me, man. And it's landed me where I am today.
Awesome. I love your journey that you really talk about, and really, so talk about your experiencing about growing up in Miamisburg. I mean, what was that like? I've been in Miamisburg, can understand, the kind of the environment that you grew up in. And I know we talked a little bit about that. So how did that shape you to become the man you are today? And how did it set you on the path towards success?
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's an incredible question. Miamisburg, man. I call truly, before Miamisburg, my mother moved us. We were, essentially in a lower poverty stricken community in Dayton, Ohio is where we moved from. And so we moved to Miamisburg when I was in the fourth grade. And I'll tell you what, man, Miamisburg has absolutely, in so many different ways, molded me into the man that I have today, some of the passions and inspirations that I have today as well. And to be very clear, man, some of my best friends, some of the greatest people that I know are Royal Blue Miamisburg Vikings, man. So shout out to all of those people. However, there is another side to Miamisburg. And Miamisburg is, I would consider, a progressive city. It has not always been a progressive city, but it continues to move forward is my prayers, to say the least. But man, when we moved there in the 4th grade, I went to Bauer Elementary. It was about 2 miles away from my home. And I can remember going to school and, just not really being comfortable, and not comfortable because I didn't like the other people, but it was just it was a culture shock. It was it was a change of scenery, to say the least. And the idea when my mother moved us to Miamisburg, which is what exactly she did, was just create a better environment and to put us into an opportunity of better education. And so, man, I love my teachers, Mr. O'Neill, Miss Lee Marker. Some of these people are still in my life today. However, the 4th grade was the first time that I had ever been called the N-word. And man, and I remember, kind of getting into a scuffle with the kid and being really angry. And to be perfectly honest with you, Jordan, I didn't know the severity of what it meant. I just knew it was wrong. And, looking back at being an adult now, you begin to believe and know that these behaviors are taught. These are not behaviors that, children are born with. They don't, come out of the mother's womb and stick their tongue out the black doctor. These are things that, they may have heard dad or mom or grandma or cousin hear or say, and then they have, repeated it. And throughout my career in Miamisburg, man, I experienced a lot of adversity with racism, so much that it began to be a part of my own life. I seemingly began to embrace the black jokes, embrace the derogatory terms in one way or another, because my peers were predominantly white. And so, you really didn't have too much of an option, to say the least. And so growing up in Miamisburg was great, man. I had some great opportunities to do some incredible things. My 8th grade year at Wentz Middle School, I ran for class president, man. It was really the first time that I had ever heard of student council, student government. It just wasn't something that I ever really paid attention to, and that we really didn't have in the community that I came from. And so the superintendent's daughter was running, and so was another incredible lady by the name of Xanth Atkinson, who is absolutely wonderful. However, they were both rendering, both from Miamisburg, and I'm not from Miamisburg at all, and look a little different. But I said, man, I want to do this thing, man. So I went to Miss Dakin and I said, hey, I want to run for president. And she said, okay, let's get you in. And so, man, I had no money. I had nothing to market myself and campaign. So I went to the library and printed off a bunch of pieces of paper and, vote for Asante Hill and et cetera. And long story short, man, I won. And yeah, that it really, and that I would have to say really began to change my life, man, because I began to attach myself to something more than just being a black man or being the black man that was in a more predominantly white community. I was now the president of my class. And to kind of give you even a ratio of what that demographic looks like on our class average, I would say about 500 students. There may have been about 15 or 20 African-American students. And some of those students actually went to CTC, which is a career technical college as well, while they were in high school. And so from then on, man, I ran for student body president of my class since then, and had the opportunity to lead my class in one way or another through proms, homecomings, pep rallies, you name it, I did it. Had a lot of opportunities, man, to just create great synergy within the community. Worked very closely with the mayor of Miamisburg, man, worked very closely with all superintendents, had great relationships with all of my teachers as well, man. But I'll tell you the thing that Miamisburg did for me. It allowed me to be able to communicate and understand the importance of diversity and inclusion. This is something that's very pivotal, that you are able to communicate and deliver a message to anyone, no matter what the color of their skin is or what they look like or who they are. And so regardless if I'm in a room full of African Americans or Caucasians or Latinos, I may have to tweak the message and make some adjustments. However, I'm able to get the message clear and concise so that way they're able to not only understand, but also comprehend. And so, I also understand too, man, that, not all white people are bad. It's something that, but I didn't realize that most African Americans have that perspective, because, when I moved to Atlanta, this is a predominantly Black community. And so the ratio completely flips. So with that being said, a lot of Black students in Atlanta have not been exposed to a place like Miamisburg ever. So they're it's kind of like you begin to craft your idea based on the media, based on what you see, versus actually being able to create relationships with people. So I'm kind of like that advocate between the two, like trying to always build the bridge and allow, some coexistence. But Miamisburg, man, it helped me a lot. It revealed a lot about myself. It gave me a lot of passions for the work that I'm doing today.
Awesome. And I really love your story. I mean, you were part of the 1%, right? I mean, like you were different from the moment you walked into that school. And growing up, it's hard to understand it. And it's hard to understand the fact that sometimes, your friends or classmates will treat you differently or say jokes, point out the differences. And it's easy to take it personally, or it's easy to think like they don't like you because of you, or it could be one of the stereotypes or biases that they may have. And that's something that I've seen you talk about as growing up. And I love that you're wanting to build bridges, understanding that there's not one right and not one way wrong, that you really have to collaborate and build bridges. And one of my mentors, Greg Ford, taught me this: building businesses builds bridges. And I just love that phrase because that's exactly what you're doing. And it's cool to see that happen in both of our lives, and like how we've experienced this entrepreneurship journey and how much that is very similar about the way that we've grown up, that, much like yourself, I was one of the only Asian kids growing up in my school, and went to a predominantly white school, and so it's just I had to learn. You hear these phrases like, being called an Oreo or being called a banana, like it's you're black on the outside, white on the inside, or yellow on the outside, white on the inside. And it's like, you talk about those jokes and sometimes they really mean something. They get a little deep in. And for me, what it did is it created chips on my shoulder. And I really had to discover, like, listen, that's good and everything, but that at the end of the day, that doesn't give me satisfaction and fulfillment. And what really it does is to forgive them, right? And learn to heal those experiences and know, like, that they may not have known better, and that's okay. But now it's our opportunity to, again, like you talk about, build bridges. So you told me growing up, you've always been a leader, and I love that you're a class president at such a young age and talking to the mayors and really like getting into that space. I really love that about you. You said you feel like you were born to be a leader. So at what point did you realize you were destined to do great things, accomplish your dreams, and create positive change for your community?
Man, that's a really great question. When you look back over your life, man, your childhood will reveal a lot to you. And you have to have the courage to do so. But if you have the courage to do so, it will begin to reveal to you a lot of who you were predestined to be. And that's what I had to start doing. And I had to start thinking back over to, fifth grade and second grade. And what was I doing? What kind of student was I? Where was I? What did I like to do? What was the seed that was planted in me? And so when I begin to acknowledge that, I begin to think about, being, just for example, man, I was the safety patrol guy like all year, man. Like I was like in the fourth grade, directing people, all the other kids are in the gym and they're laughing and drinking donuts and playing around. And I'm outside directing traffic, buses and students, the line leader and on down. And so it's not that, God called me to be a safety patrol monitor for the rest of my life, but that was a seed. That was a seed of leadership. That was a seed of wanting to take care and of to help people and to be of support. And so when I began to realize and reflect on some of those things, I knew, that I was called to be a leader. I just didn't quite know what capacity God would call me to do that in. Honestly, man, I still don't know. He's always revealing incredible gifts and opportunities to me that I never even thought were possible, So if he never gave me another idea, I would honestly be okay. He's got credit with me because, it truly, man, it's just so much out there that you can do, such an impact that you can make. But man, specifically, I was 23 years old and I was standing outside on my balcony and I talk to God a lot, man. I worship God. I'm a man of faith. And God spoke to me and he said, Asante, this is bigger than you. And in that moment, I'll never forget it. I live alone. I was standing there by myself and I had to make sure that he said what he said. But the moment that I realized that this was all bigger than me, that my talents, my skills, my gifts, my abilities were given to me for the connection and the empowerment of other people, is when I began to really tap into what I really care about, what my purpose was, what I was truly called to do, man. And so there's a difference between a career, a job, and your purpose. And I began to get in alignment with my purpose by identifying, what am I called to do? Let me reflect on who I used to be and who I am now and what I've been brought through, because I believe that nothing in your life just happens. Nothing happens by coincidence, but what it takes is the opportunity and the courage to reflect on it and see, what can I get out of this? As bad as the situation could have been, as good as the situation could have been, what can I get out of this to learn, to grow, to develop, to build character, and to become a better person? And so the other thing, man, is I had to begin to truly reflect upon the disparities, the disproportionality in our communities. I had to begin to reflect on the problems and the issues to get me where I am. Because, truly, when I lived in Miamisburg, it's very easy to live in that bubble and live in just a small world in a small town. And you kind of forget that there's a whole entire world outside of where you are. And so when I first moved to Atlanta, man, I'll never forget, I was talking to, the young lady had to be about 6 years old or so. I was in the neighborhood that I lived in. And I'm an advocate for education, man. And so I asked the young lady, I said, what's 2 + 2? And she couldn't tell me. She couldn't tell me. And she tried her absolute hardest. And she was of age to where she should have absolutely known 2 + 2. And even my career as a school resource officer, man. So God has revealed a lot to me that he made me essentially a part of the problem. And he revealed it to me to fix, to not necessarily complain about. Because a lot of times in life, we see things and like, man, somebody ought to do something about that. And it's like, ironically enough, believe it or not, it's in front of you and God is revealing it to you because that's what you're called to do. And it's not to, pass it on to somebody else. So when I begin to look at what bothers me, what irks my skin, what makes me really upset, that's when I begin to identify what my passions were.
Oh man, I really love that. I really do, because you talk about so many different things. There's so many different parts that are so important and crucial to your journey. The first step you took was essential as far as being able to pivot and reflect. That's what you were really doing. You were really focused on just reflecting, like slowing down. And that's what oftentimes that we kind of get into our minds and as society. If there's not one thing that pandemic taught us, is to slow down, right? When things are coming at you and going so fast, it's so hard to really stop, take a look around, to rest, and to really have a clear mind and to really see about, what is going around in the world around you, right? And so I really love that you talk about, there's such a difference between your career, job, and purpose, and that's so true. And all the different things that you had to go through to do that. So, again, so many great things that you talk about, and having to really go and take a look at, inside of you, what your path has been like, what experiences did you have. There's a reason why you went from Dayton to Miamisburg, from Miamisburg to Atlanta, and that you experienced those different environments. And like you said, oftentimes people don't go through all those different environments, but God put that in your life and those challenges, and he made you experience racism at such a young age, to a age where you don't even understand what racism is. We don't understand that stereotypical jokes, or, for me necessarily, the Pearl Harbor jokes or the Hiroshima jokes, or, what I mean? It's like things that I don't really understand what's going on. And even to the point where why I'm so passionate about diversity and about minorities is necessarily my story, and my story of being part of the 1%. And my grandma, and she was actually in the relocation camps, and really we're trying to, like, they were concentration camps. They really were. And that's kind of what has kind of developed me in a way, is like the Japanese culture, Japanese American culture has been through so much, even in the past 60, 70 years, and how that has had such an effect on family, and how we've had to focus on rebuilding our community. And so that's what I've been constantly thinking of, is how do we rebuild our community? How do we build back better, essentially? You know what I mean? Like, there's all these phrases you can throw out, but like, what does it take to create change, right? And we're talking about creating this positive change for our community. And I love that you saw that vision. And a lot of people are great at pointing out the problems in this world, and then they leave it to somebody else to go ahead and resolve it. That, to me, I don't know about you, but God created me in a way where I love seeing issues and I love problem solving. What can we do? Who do we need to talk to? Who do we need to get involved in this? How can we build this bigger? How can we get more people involved? And that's why I love, like, diversity unlocks innovation. The more people that you get involved in it, the more people that collaborate, and it evolves and it is better, and you build these perspectives. What fun is it to have a table around of people that all say yes, or all think alike, or all experience alike? I need someone who's experienced the world in a different way, sees the world in a different perspective, and to listen. As a society, as a generation, we need to learn how to listen better, understand your struggles. Asante, what are you going through? What has your experience been like? What has made you become the person that you are today? And go and repeat that process. It's a hard process to take. So what challenges have you had to overcome to get there? Like, looking back, what would you say was that moment, that challenge that you're like, man, I either give up or I keep on going? Like, what inspired you to keep on going? And what was that challenge that you had to overcome that has allowed you to have the success that you've had?
Yeah, man. Great question. I've endured a lot to be the age that I am at, and man, because of my relationship with God, I understand that all of these things happen, and all of these things were predestined to be there in order to continue to make me into the man that I am today. And so when you begin to place your problems in their proper perspectives, it allows you to be at a bit more peace. One of the more challenging things that have happened in my life is I lost my father when I was a sophomore in high school. And ironically enough, while at the time that I lost my father, it was very tough and it was very hard. It's actually become even more tough. It actually has become not easier with time because, I'm in a transition of actually developing and becoming into manhood, and so, sometimes even within, this age group of being in between my 20s, you kind of sometimes needs to make that phone call or, get some advice or get some dating understanding and relationship advice. And so, to not have that luxury, it's tough, and I tell people all the time, to still have both of your parents is something that you should always be very grateful for. So that was one of the bigger things that has played a pivotal role in my life. But now I'm able to, reach back and help young Black men and young Black women who have also endured the same pain. And so when I use what was meant for bad, when I use it as for my good, right? So things are not happening to me, they're happening for me. And so when I began to change my perspective, I then was able to live my life at a bit more peace. And I've been through some challenging things, man, and that encompasses a narrative that we're all too familiar with young adolescent Black youth from systematic and institutionalized racism, man, generational financial instability, unreconciled mental health trauma. That's very important that our program is focused a lot on is mental health, ensuring that you have the right mental, man, and the right perspective and the right attitude to take life on, man, because life will hit you in the mouth. It will hit you in the mouth, but you fall down 7 and you get up 8. And so because of that, I've been able to identify my why, and it all channels back to living for something bigger than you. And I just named a few of the things that I've had to endure, man, but I could have given up a long time ago, man, but God never brings you this far to bring you this far. And so when you begin to reflect on how far you've come and where you left and where you've been, you know that there's something more. If I can just get one more day, and then before you know it, it's like the compound interest effect. And so, man, I'm just blessed, to have that mindset. Not everyone has that mindset, and I try not to be the victim. I try to be the victor as much as I possibly can, man, by using my story to pay it forward, to simply pay it forward, man. And if I can help one person, be a ripple in the ocean of change, progression, and advancement, then I know for sure that's going to help somebody else. And if we can take those one small acts of kindness to change the world, then we can do that, man. And for me, it's about legacy, and they say that when you look at a tombstone, it's not really the dates, it's the dash. It's the dash. How many people did you help? What kind of impact did you make? Did you give when you had abundance? Did you serve other people? What do you value? What moves you? What are you doing that is beyond you? And so when I began to reflect on that, I began to identify what my purpose was, what I was called to do. And you then have to begin to understand that everybody's not going to clap. Everybody's not going to applaud. Everybody's not going to understand. Everybody's not going to be able to see the vision, but they're not supposed to see it because it was given to you. It wasn't given to them, right? So sometimes, a lot of times, we allow people to put their fears and their limitations on us, and they do it directly and or indirectly. Sometimes people have good intentions, but because they can't see themselves doing it, they'll indirectly put that on you. And so you just have to be careful and know that you can do absolutely anything that you put your mind to. And so, there's a scripture that says, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. And wouldn't it be amazing, man, if people really believe that? So when you go into the interview and they ask you what you do, I can do all things. When you go onto the job, well, I can do all things. And so when you begin to tap into that power, to tap into that potential, man, the sky becomes the limit. However, you can't forsake the process on the way to the promise. And that's what tears a lot of people down, man, is that they see the vision. It's tough being a visionary because you can see everything before you get it. And so you can see it, but you have to be faced with your current reality of your bank account being in the negative. But man, I can see myself in $1 million home, right? So wait a second here. This isn't making sense. However, though, if God can't trust you with the small things, he definitely can't trust you with the big things. So you have to endure the process and also know that you never want anything too soon. A blessing too soon can be a curse. If I had a son, and I bought him a car and I tried to give him those keys at 3 years old versus at 18 years old, it's the same car, it's the same gesture, but the blessing came too soon, right? So never hope for anything too soon because you'll probably screw it up. So just endure and embrace the process and know that it's building you. It's by steps. It's not an elevator. You got to take it by steps.
Man, you just dropped so many gems in that. Like, I literally love it. One of the things that really just stuck out to me, I mean, several things kind of stuck out to me because I really just love how you wrapped it all together and how everything is so integrated with each other, right? I mean, you talked about be the victor, not the victim. I mean, how many times are we the victim in our own stories each and every time? So, I mean, I really love that because it shifts the focus, man. And I love, like in previous podcasts, we've really talked about, we can't control the events and experiences that we have in our life, but we 100% can control the response that we have. And that's the response, to be the victor, to endure, to endure the struggle through all the way through till it's completed, right? It talks about that because then you develop perseverance, right? Once you develop perseverance, man, you can do anything in life. And when you combine that with I can do all things, I mean, it continues to unlock and unfold. And you know what I mean? Like, different. And I love that you talked about not everyone is going to clap and cheer you on, and especially family. And especially your close friends. That's the hardest thing that I've had to come to terms with because, like you talked about, oftentimes it could be their fears. It could be their doubts. It could be their not understanding your vision or not knowing. I mean, there's a fear of not knowing. And a lot of that can be projected on you. And I mean, I've heard it all as far as like, don't start the podcast until you get funding. Don't do this. Watch out for technical issues because it's going to damage your brand. Like I've heard so many different things where it's like, yeah, those are all failures. Those are all things that are going to happen. But listen, I'm going to overcome that. I'm going to get the word out there. And the important thing is being able to create value and to be able to see the vision and to overcome those failures, because there's two things that are constant in life that we can 100% expect to happen in life, which is the two biggest fears that we have as a society, is our fear of failure and our fear of change. Those are two things that you can count on that will happen in life. It will always, always, always happen. You will always encounter fears. You always encounter failures, and you'll always encounter change. And it's how do you respond to that? Do you adapt to it? Do you adapt to your surroundings? Do you pivot? Do you change? Do you be flexible with the situations? Do you respond? How do you manage your stress? How do you manage your failures? Do you get stuck and say, I'm going to give up, and that didn't work out, and I'm going to give up? Or do you be like, listen, that I agree, that did not go as planned. And, I want to create a great user experience. I want to create a great mentorship program. I want to inspire these kids to go on and do great things. But you can't allow the failures to define who you are. And not, like you said, not everyone is going to see your vision that you have, and not everyone is going to understand your why and purpose, but it's not there for them. You know what I mean? That is your vision. That is your purpose. That is your dream. That is your goal. That is what you want to do in your life. That is what your legacy, that in between that dash, that you have 100% control of. What is your legacy going to be like? What are people going to say when you're not here? Are you going to build something that's going to outlast us? You know what I mean? I love that how you put that in your mission statement, just as part of like who you are. You're building something that's going to outlive you, and just the power of that, you know what I mean?
And to that point, Jordan, I'd say just really quick, and anyone who's watching this, I want you to get this, that you can't have courage without fear. They go together. Because courage is the opportunity to do something that you're afraid to do. And so you need the fears. You just need to utilize them in the right way and utilize them in the right perspective. There are other people that go through what you go through. There are other people that go through worse than what you go through and make it further than you, because they choose to be the victor and not the victim. Boats, they say it doesn't begin to sink until you allow what's going on the outside to get in on the inside. And so you have to be cognizant of that. I am in control. And when you begin to allow that to go away, when you begin to allow depression and anxiety and other things that are fear, the naysayers, the hate, whatever you want to call it, man, that, you have to take an opportunity to reflect and say, wait a second, am I allowing this to overcome me, or is it overcoming me? And so when you begin to reflect on that, that's when you begin to understand and know, okay, you know what, let me get in alignment to what I'm called and what I'm supposed to be doing, no matter the cost, no matter the price. Understand that the money is always a byproduct of your vision. The money is a byproduct of the vision, but also God's provision. And so when you get in alignment with what he's called you to do, you don't have to worry about anything else.
And that he provides, doesn't he? He provides you with your daily bread. I mean, and he really does, with exactly what you need today. It doesn't, and that's what I've had to focus on, because, man, I've been cuffed by my anxiety. I've been cuffed by my depression, or stages of, the ebbs and flows in life. And, there's days where you just wake up and you're just not feeling it. And if you accept what the way that society views you, and become obsessive with that, when you wake up those days not feeling like yourself, or if it's a cloudy day, I'm often very affected by the weather. So if it's a cloudy, dreamy day, it's harder for me to get motivation and get that energy. And so I had to stop thinking people pleasing. I had to stop saying like there is no expectation to be any certain way. There's days that I can have that are, that can be sad, or that can feel anxious or worried, but not to let it overcome me. And I love how you talk about that, because, when you dig deep down inside and really, fight with it, that the things that kind of come out of that, make you a better person and really prepare you for when things are really going to get tough. And so I love that you talk about it. kind of pivoting, and I want to focus more on your organization, just the development. So you started your organization in 2018, and you really created it to give Black youth and Black men a safe space to come in and converse. Because, I mean, that's really, that step one is a hard step. And for men to be vulnerable with their feelings and emotions. And I mean, even for people, for other guys to see me cry, I mean, there's very few. I mean, I can count less on my hand, you know what I mean, about the people that have seen me cry. But in those moments that they have, like the amount of trust and vulnerability and breakthrough that I have in those moments have been so eye-opening. So I love that you created that. So talk to me a little bit about your journey from 2018, creating your organization for Black youth to mentor and empower them, and then how you kind of added onto that vision and kind of where you are today, because I know you're about to release a new mentorship program and a development of a sports academy as well. So kind of go into that from 2018, creating it, and then kind of where we are today.
Yeah, man. Great question. So, I founded Black Men of Valor in wake of a lot of the injustices that are still perpetuating our country. And the opportunity, though, was that I understand very clearly and emphatically that if we are going to empower, restore, and fortify the Black community, it absolutely starts within. I'm not really waiting on a savior. I'm not waiting on a law. I'm not waiting on a document. I'm not waiting on an amendment to fix what has happened to the Black community. Once again, I have to take on that responsibility and find my piece of the pie in the way that I'm supposed to do that. And so when I founded Black Men of Valor, it was to create a safe haven and a platform for Black men to come together, to commune, to deliberate, and to discuss the necessary solutions that we needed to take action on to begin to lead our communities. And so it was an opportunity and a place where Black men could come together and commune and to laugh and to cry and to joke and have access to mentors. But ultimately, the goal was to create an environment where Black men to come together and a platform where we seemingly still don't have. We grew, and for most African-American Black males, they grow up in homes where they have to not necessarily, it's not okay to be in tune with your emotions, and so, and most men did with this period. And so you have the masculinity part, but nobody really teaches you how to self-care and take care of yourself, and that it's okay to cry. If you got, man, listen, I'm gonna cry. You know what? If I gotta cry, I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna cry. I don't care who's looking. I don't care who's around. Just a funny story, like, when I go to church, I love worshiping God, man. So I raise my hands, I clap, do whatever I need to do. And I can't tell you how many men have walked up like, man, you really inspired me, because, most men are like, nah, man, I'm too cool. Like, no, I'm not doing that. I feel the music. I feel God trying to touch me, but I'm not going to raise my hands. No, not going to do it, because they're too concerned about what's going on with, on the outside. But anyway, founded Black Men of Valor, man. And, actually, this is pretty funny. I've never really told this story, but I was really nervous. I was like, I was really, really scared, because it was starting with just like an event where we're going to come together, and you can see some of those videos on our Instagram. And I was dating a young lady at the time, and I was sitting there, and I'm like, I got the post ready on Instagram and got it all typed out, and man, I was going to cancel it out. I wasn't going to post it. And she literally reached over my shoulder and hit the button for it to post. And from that moment on, I mean, my life has been changed. I am, that person, she still's a part of my life as a friend, but man, you just never know the people that God brings around you to use as well. And so just kind of fast forwarding, after creating that environment, we fast forwarding into 2020, a lot of, in wake of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, God rest their souls, and a lot of the injustices that were happening around the country, Black Men Valor really took a stance in the Atlanta community. I mean, we were leading marches and protests and demonstrations peacefully of tens and thousands of people, man. I can remember looking back over my shoulder and turning around, walking down Northside Drive and seeing miles and miles of people. And man, it really changes the game when you begin to realize that this is the same place that Martin Luther King and a lot of John Lewis and the individuals, Andrew Young, the people who paved the way for us, these are the same streets and sidewalks that they had to walk down, that they had to have blood, sweat, and attacks and tear gas and dogs and et cetera, man. So that really ignited Black Men of Valor to where we are today. And so to kind of fast forward, man, we made a transition to Black Men and Women of Valor, as you all know. And that was one of the best decisions that I'll probably ever make for the organization. And just as a little ticker here, shout out to all of the women in the world. Shout out to all of the women that are leading this country, that are pioneers, trailblazers. Truly, even specifically in the Black community, the strength of the Black community has not been built on Black men. It's been built on Black women. They have been paving and leading the way for a very long time. And so the idea was, to find a way to join hands with them, to lock arms, to not stand in front or behind or on the side of them, but to walk together in our struggle for justice and freedom. However, me being a man of faith, starting Black Men of Valor, the goal was to uplift a generation of young Black men. However, God spoke to me and said, look, man, you can't do this without both. It would be a disservice to only take young Black men of valor with you and then leave our young Black women of valor behind. And so I knew that I had to make that transition. To be perfectly honest with you, I was not in favor of it at first, because it wasn't because I understand the importance of helping our women, but I knew that if I can get young men to lead themselves and their family and their community, then maybe that will directly impact our communities, because then they'll go back and be able to extend that to leading the homes, leading their families, leading their wives, leading their children, and et cetera. So I still had the connection. However, I needed to bring them both together. So we have fully made a transition of impact to Black men and women of valor. Ultimately, man, we're a mentorship program. And so we groom transitional Black youth between the ages of 17 and 21. We specifically target the ages of 17 to 21 because we're coming in as that last lifeline right before they make that full transition into adulthood. At age 17, you transition into the age 18, and then 18 on up into the age of 21. Now, my heart, man, honestly, is in a place to where I would reach and grab kids all the way from pre-K to however much I possibly can. But I had to get a target audience and allow the other community pioneers and nonprofits to help and take care on some of those responsibilities. And so ultimately, man, what we do is our program equips our youth and our mentees with the necessary tools, etiquette, skills, and resources that they need to thrive successfully on their transition into adulthood, man. So I've designed a blueprint that is based on the social ecological theory. And so it allows us to really begin to uproot a lot of the generational cycles that are perpetuating communities of color through empowering these transitional youth to fulfill their dreams, their goals, their aspirations, and also their destiny, and then to also act upon it. So not only do we show them how to identify it, but then how to act upon it and put the necessary strategic goals in play in order to get there. And so with that being said, man, I built the blueprint on 5 principles, which is edification, enlightenment, empowerment, elevation, and excellence. And our edification pillars where we cater to the personal and professional development of our mentees. And so we go through activities, workshops, and seminars that cater anywhere between leadership development, integrity, character, personal branding, interview etiquette, business etiquette, you name it, it is more than likely in the interpersonal and soft skill development of our mentees, very basic fundamental level. We then move forward into the enlightenment pillar, and that's our education and economics. We're going through all things financial literacy, man. So that's how we're also designed to uproot a lot of these generational cycles by teaching financial literacy. And so this is anywhere between credit card utilization, credit health, debt management, savings, compound interest, stocks, investments, savings, you name it, it is more than likely in the financial literacy pillar. And then so once we edify them, and once we enlighten them, we move forward into the empowerment pillar, which happens to be my favorite. And that's where we absolutely get down into the trenches of identifying the dreams and the aspirations of our mentees. And so we put together 1 to 5 to 10 year developmental plans. We ensure that we go on college tours, job placements, internships, career explorations, you name it. It truly begins to bring the blueprint holistically together. And then our last 2 pillars are the elevation and the excellence pillar. And those are 2 direct results of the first 3. So once we edify, once we enlighten, and once we empower, we ensure that our mentees are elevated. And that's our attitude and altitude pillar. So it just ensures that they have the right mindset, the right perspective to take on adulthood. And then lastly, our excellence pillar, which is implementation and execution. And that just is ensured now that they have applied and have implemented all the principles that they've learned over the course of the program. Our program lasts 32 weeks, man, which tunnels up to about 8 months, give or take. We provide opportunities for our mentees to become program alumni. We provide graduation for them to celebrate them on their way to success, but also at the end of their success as well.
And Such good stuff, man. I love what you're doing. And I love your 5 pillars: edification, enlightenment, empowerment, elevation, and excellence. I love that, man. And you know, just how you incorporate all those principles and really identifying what are the issues and what is not taught in the schools, what's not taught in the Black youth environment, right? And how can you bridge the gap and give them that knowledge, give them the keys and the blueprint to success, and help encourage them and support them. And, you know, you always hear, you know, show me your friends and I'll show you where you're going to be in 5 years. And that's so true. And that's where you're creating an environment, a safe space where they can be themselves, figure out who they want to be and their why, and then add on all these different tools and resources that you're giving. Man, I love that. And it's going to have such a true impact, not only in Atlanta, but I feel like you're going to be able to do this in multiple cities and collaborate with other individuals to do that. So I can't wait to see that, to see the success. And a second thought, when you're talking about adding women onto the Black Men and Women of Valor, man, I mean, you're so right. And in my opinion, you know, we often see guys as like the head of the household, but I say women are the backbone of the household. Man, they're touching everything, and you know, they're the spine. They keep it all together. They're moving in pieces, and they're, I mean, moms and women, I mean, they're great. I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for my mother, if it wasn't for my grandmothers. You know, the strong women in my life, and the tough love and the nurturing love. You need it all, and so that's so awesome. You've brought them into the picture as well, because again, like you said, you can relate to the men, you can help, you know, give the men a leadership skills, but it's also being great to have that influence and impact in the women and empower them to do the same things. And you can do anything you put your mind to. And man, I really, really, really love that.
And I have to say, man, I have to dispel this myth. You know, we're taught that, you know, as men, that we are the head of the household, but that's not true. We're the bottom, we're the foundation. We're supposed to carry all of the weight. We're supposed to uphold the foundation of the home. And so we're actually the bottom of the house. There are certain things that as a man, that doesn't even get to your family because it has to come through you first. There are certain things as a leader that you endure before it even gets to them. Sometimes your family don't even understand that, you know, they just don't understand, period, the things that you have to endure, because it's got to come through you first. But we're not the top of the household, man. We're the bottom. We carry the weight. We are the foundation. What is a house without a foundation, man? You can have 4 walls, you can put things up, you can have a roof, you can have the head of the roof, you can have all of that. But if you don't have a solid foundation, it won't be able to weather the storm, to say the least. So
I love
just wanted
that,
to throw
man.
that in there, man.
No, I really do. And you are so right. We are the foundation, and we need to understand what are our cornerstones of our foundation as well. You know, if this is the house that we're building on, what does the land look like? You know, you know, are we building on a rock, or are we building on sand? You know what I mean? And so it's just so cool seeing that. Before we kind of end here, 2 things, man. If anyone, again, has any questions, please drop it in the comments or the chat. Put your email in there, and Asante will personally reach out to you, respond, and answer to that question. So thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. And really, last thing before we kind of end our time here, give us a success story, a personal story of someone that has walked through your mentorship program, the impact that you've had on their life, where you saw them on day one, and they could be headed clear path, you know, towards prison or towards jail or whatever it may be. Like, they're clearly on, you know, making the wrong decisions, on the wrong path, where you were able to mentor them and empower them to change their life, take control, understand who they are, their vision, their why their purpose, and all that. And the biggest success story, I would love to hear a testimony that you have that comes to mind.
Yeah, man. Man, so many. In the time that I've spent as a school resource officer in Dayton Public Schools, but also in the work that we are doing now. Man, so many incredible stories. You know, we've worked a lot with the Atlanta Water Boys, and some of you watching may not be familiar with them, but these are young Black men who sell water and Gatorade on the corners in the streets of Atlanta, Georgia, who are seemingly trying to make a living, who are raising money to be able to feed their families, to eat at home, to buy clothes, to pay rent. And these young men range from the ages of 6 years old all the way up to the age of 24. And so that is a huge problem. So I got some stories in that, man. I got some stories with the program now. I'm just trying to decipher
No, it's
which
hard.
one,
It's hard to pick
which
one because there's
one,
so many that I know. It's
which one
tough.
I would like to use. But I'll use two, and I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. The first one specifically is with one of the Atlanta Water Boys. His name is JP, man. Special, special, special kid. And I had an opportunity to meet him because when I was appointed by Mayor Keisha Bottoms to the Youth Advisory Council here in Atlanta, that program was specific. That council was specifically put together for the development and implementing and designing programming and curriculum for the Atlanta Water Boys, for Atlanta's Black youth, and had the pleasure of working very closely with their office to do so. So in the midst of that, through the midst of God's divine order, to say the least, I met these young men, and I started to go down to the corner to actually work with them to sell water, to help them raise funds for themselves. I would buy them inventory, Gatorade, water, you name it, food throughout the day, et cetera, because these young men are out there from 7 a.m., from sun up to sundown. Now, there's been a few bad apples and et cetera, if you read up on them, but ultimately, and we understand that there's bad apples in any endeavor, bad preachers, bad teachers, bad officers, you name it. However, for the majority, these young men are out there, they'll say things like, Mr. Hill, I'm just out here selling water because, I don't want to be stealing. I don't want to be breaking in cars. I don't want to be breaking in people's houses. So I just come out here and sell water, try to do the right thing. Oh, man. So when you hear that, when you hear Black youth who are poverty stricken, who have to sell water and Gatorade on the streets of Atlanta, in and out and paving in and out of the streets with cars and et cetera. And it became very dangerous to where the city mandated that they could no longer sell water. And this caused a lot of issues because it took away a source of income for these young men. On any given day, these young men were making anywhere between $150 and $300. And these are, which is, they essentially created their own economy without any help, without any training, without any infrastructure. And so we're working on, getting them vendor's license and all that good stuff. But JP, let's just get back to the story there. So JP was always really special to me. When I came around, he always kind of, stood up, right? Yes, sir, no, sir, and just always kind of took a liking to me, and I took a liking to him as well. And I began to kind of mentor JP individually on my own and be able to help him through a lot of what he was going through. His family seemingly has gone through some things that I truly have never had to endure, while I endured a lot. And so to make a long story short, man, JP and his family were struggling through the pandemic. And we put on a fundraiser for JP and his family to be able to help them raise some funds to be able to get through some of their financial hardships that they were enduring. Through the midst of, before we even got there, JP and I had become so close, man, that I was able to help him begin to fortify and understand what he was given. JP seemingly was one of the kids that never quite fit in with the rest of the kids. Even though he tries to be as cool as he possibly can, man, he doesn't understand that God called him to not fit in. He's called to be a misfit. He's called to be the black sheep because he's going to do some really incredible things in life. And so my goal is, whenever I get with these mentees, man, is to help them identify what God called them to do, what their purpose is, what their gifts are. My job is not to send them to Chick-fil-A or McDonald's to get a job. That's not what I want to do. While we provide those kind of services, I want you to know that you are called to do something extremely special that nobody on the planet is meant and or called to be average. I mean, if that was the case, why in the world would God have called you to even be a human being? You could have been a bus, a tree, a leaf for that matter. There's TV that's standing up above my head here, but you're a human being. So there's something here for you to do. And when I begin to have these conversations with JP, man, you can kind of see the light bulb going off. You can kind of see the ticker begin to move of, okay, maybe there is something here for me. Maybe there is something that I am called to do. And so while the fundraiser part was awesome, but the impact that we were able to make when we put on the fundraiser, it was a Suits and Solidarity event. And it was where JP and all of his friends that sold water at the corner, about 15 to 20 young men, were able to come down to the Georgia State Capitol, where we had a photo shoot, where we put them in suits. And so these were the first time that some of these young men have ever put on a tie, dress pants, dress shoots, without it having to be a funeral or just at all. And so when the organization that they also work with, which is by the name of Hey Atlanta, she sent me a few videos as they were putting on their dress shirts, and you, oh my goodness, you could see the empowerment. You can, before they even got to the event, man, before they even got there, we had already made the impact because they were getting dressed, they were getting ready, they were putting on their dress. Oh yeah, they were feeling like the absolute man. And when you can begin to show and to edify and enlighten and expose, it's all about the exposure, man. When you begin to expose somebody to something greater, they don't want to go back to lesser. And my job is to make you aware, because once you become aware, you become responsible. So, okay, you know what? I look good in a suit. I can wear a suit. Okay, now I'm aware. And now I know that I become responsible. But if you don't know, you just simply don't know. And so the opportunity was bringing them, and I would say about 30 to 40 other community members, man, that came out that were suited and booted, dressed up. And so they were exposed to people that looked like them, that wasn't people that were sagging their pants or had on baggy clothes, but I mean, tight-knit individuals who were business, young men, young professionals who were ready to take care of business. So because of that, man, JP has truly begun to take the life of advancement, man. You know, he's a kid. He's always going to be a kid. But my job, man, and my personal story was that when the light bulb went off and I exposed him to, okay, I have something that's inside of me that I have not yet discovered. But another story is with one of my mentees by the name of Tallis Landers. This is one of the major success stories, man. One of the biggest things that I pride myself on is when our mentees come into the program, man, you normally ask them, you know, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to be? What do you want to do? And they say, I want to be a businessman. I want to make a lot of money, or, you know, it's very broad, right? And so the goal is that as they come through the program, we're able to help them articulate in a way that it's not just, I want to be a businessman, but I'm going to tell you how I plan to be a businessman, or what kind of businessman that I'm going to be, and or how I plan to make $1 million or become a billionaire. And so the other day, and Tallis, he plays basketball. He's on one of the sports academy teams that we most recently adopted. And he's got a real deep, burrowy voice, right? So it's sometimes hard to hear what he's saying. And so we have been working with Tallis for some time, man, on just public speaking, just exposing him to different opportunities and things of that nature. And so the other day we had a bit of a testimony for our mentees, to where our mentees had an opportunity to speak about some of the things that they've learned in the program. And so we allowed them, to write out what they wanted to say and do. And so long story short, man, we go to record the video. And Tallis is going up and he's recording this video. And man, the way from the beginning of when he came into the program to the way he came and delivered his testimony was absolutely so incredible. The way he articulated himself, the way he knew what he wanted to say, the way that he understood now what gifts and destiny and aspirations are, the way that he's now able to articulate his purpose and what he wants to do with his life. It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible, because we're used to telling Tallis, speak up, man, speak up so we can hear you. And a lot of times as Black men, we are natural, we have natural dominance in a sense. And so sometimes we try to play small for the comfort of others. And I try to dispel that myth. You don't have to play small or dim your light for anybody. And so when he got up on that camera, man, and this is just a small story out of all of them, but when he began to speak, I kid you not, my chief operating officer, she called me after she seen the video, and she was literally almost in tears, because she knew how important it was for him to be able to have the confidence, because we ingrained the confidence in him and the courage in him that, man, I can do anything. I can do anything. I can be a basketball player. I can be a commentator. I can even get on here and speak and articulate myself better than I've ever have before. And the demeanor, the way that he carries himself, the way that you can have a conversation with him, it's like, wow. And he's only 20 years old. He's only 20 years old. And so, we pride ourselves on being able to get our kids ahead of the game. To be perfectly honest with you, man, in all humility, a lot of what I know I had to teach myself, or had to be exposed to it, or I had to learn the hard way. And so we press on these guys to, just listen to us. You may not, endure and take it all in. However, if we can just let you know that the problem may arise, you'll be a little bit more prepared. We can just let you know that these issues or circumstances and trials may come, then they're able to also put their problems in a proper perspective, and then continue to empower and fortify and change our community. But more so than anything, man, the thing and I'm huge on public speaking. I'm huge on being able to articulate yourself and communicate in any environment, because typically what happens, man, is because our Black youth are not prepared for a life away from, fast track careers and et cetera, we negate their other academic, intellectual, their other gifts, and their other purposes and destiny that they have. And so my goal is anytime I get with a kid, man, is to pull it out of them, whatever it is, to pull it out of them, to expose that, man, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this, and you can do that, and you can do this, and you can do that too, and you can do that too. And then let's put a strategy together to get you there. And being able to help them identify their why, what they care about most, and I'll leave this last point. One of the biggest successes we've had is being able to get our mentees to understand that it's not about them. And if you can get that principle inside of them, I'm telling you, brother, that's how you begin to change the world. I'm young. I'm still considered Black youth, but I understand how important it is to automatically begin to start reaching back. I've spent a lot of time in my professional career in training and development. And so I'm always thinking about the next leader up, the next person that's on their way up. And so when these guys it's easy to, and you were talking about this earlier, when you're thinking about yourself, it's easy to be the victim. It's easier to have a bad day. It's easier to not want to get out of bed. It's easier to feel bad for yourself. But I'm telling you, my life changed when I began to start thinking about other people. Some of the best days that I have is when I'm not thinking about me. I'm thinking about the kids. I'm thinking about my retiring my mother. I'm thinking about my other wives and the things those are my best days. It's not when I'm thinking about Asante. It's not when I'm thinking about my feelings and how I feel and I didn't get enough sleep last night and this person didn't call me. It's never ever about myself. And so when you hear these kids begin to start articulate their why and why it's bigger than them, that's when you've made a change in their life, because they're from this. If you don't teach them anymore else, they're going to live their lives for something that serves beyond them. And that's how you change the world, one student at a time.
Man, I love that, man. I really do. And you can see the genuine impact, and you can see the genuine, being able to embrace them, take everyone in, take your mentees in, and give them knowledge, give them gems that they maybe don't even have access to. So, it's great that that you're able to do that. And man, I love hearing your story. I can't wait to hear more about what is coming out for you. It's so incredible. So man, I give it to you. I pray that you will be encouraged and get strength and have perseverance, have patience and peace of mind. Man, it's so important to have those things, but you're doing a great thing and you're being a vessel. So I love seeing it, man. I can't wait to see more. And Asante, everyone, he's actually going to possibly be here in Columbus in person on May 28th. Again, that is going to be the in-person diverse network event. So you guys will have an opportunity to meet some of the guest speakers that have been on the podcast. And so if you have interest to want to come and meet Asante or anyone that's been featured on it, you won't want to miss out. May 28th, mark it on your calendar. We're going to make it happen. Again, manifesting something is going to happen, right? COVID willing. I always keep on saying that. But before we kind of wrap up here, I do want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Thank you, Arc Media Services, which they provide exceptional video production services to small businesses, to nonprofit organizations, and to government agencies. If you are interested to learn more, please visit arcmediaservices.com. Thank you to the Sycamore Studio. Again, this is such a beautiful space. I mean, it really is. There's so many things that they're doing. It's a co-working space for creatives. So if you're interested in making content that looks professional, much like this, reach out, check out the space, and please visit their website, thesycamorestudio.com. Thank you to SCOME Media for being able to produce such a great show. This has been awesome. So I love working with you and the Wilderness Agency. And if you are interested in becoming a sponsor or selecting one of our sponsor benefit packages, please contact me or apply on our website. I just want to kind of give you guys some next steps, what to do after this podcast. If you're interested, if you want to learn more about Black Men and Women of Valor, please visit their website at atlantabmwov.org. And they're also a nonprofit organization, so please donate to their nonprofit organization if you feel that you want to do something to help out, to help accomplish their vision and mission to mentor and empower Black youth. So please reach out to that. Also, want to tell you real quick before for our next podcast, please tune in Friday, April 16th at 12 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be Chi Lee, the Chief Operating Officer of Top Consulting. He has a wealth of knowledge and experience in the business world, and he even taught me his secret to his success. So find out more. Tune into the podcast, register for the next podcast. Stay tuned. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Asante, for coming on to the podcast. Had a great time, great conversation with you, man. So I love seeing it. Thank you all for watching and have a great weekend.